The ceasefire in Gaza, short as it was, has come to an end. Something has been predicted by most informed observers. It was ended by Netanyahu, the Israeli leader, and his Israeli Defense Force, or the IDF, who I will forever in future be describing as the IGF, or Israeli Genocidal Force, because there's no defense involved in the murderous rampage they're carrying out in Gaza. Hundreds more innocent Gazan men, women and children have been sacrificed on the altar of Netanyahu staying in power and therefore staying out of jail. His claims that his actions are predicated in forcing Hamas into releasing the remaining Israeli hostages. Well, he knows that's bullshit. The opposite will be the case. His actions will have predicated in all likelihood the condemnation of most, if not all, of those hostages to death, either at the hands of the homicidal thugs of Hamas or the genocidal actions of his own armed forces. Yet, both the USA and UK continue to arm and defend the indefensible. But history, if there is any history in the future, will view the legacy of both Trump and Starmer through the lens of their actions in sustaining this slaughter. Sadly, the behaviour of the BBC, anti-Beeb, has been equally despicable, as they support rather than question the actions of their political leaders. This has led to one BBC journalist, Charisma Patel, leaving the organisation, explaining her decision to do so, saying this.
So I essentially quit the BBC over its unwillingness to follow the evidence coming out of Gaza. That, at its heart, was my problem. Now, I'm a journalist. My job is to follow the evidence to its conclusions, to its robust conclusions. And, it doesn't matter to me who that angers. And I was very quickly coming to those robust conclusions. Israel was committing war crimes against humanity, targeting civilians, including children, including doctors, teachers. And I could see that in front of my eyes. This speaks to a kind of newsroom culture, or a culture across the BBC, in which there's an unwillingness to touch stories where Israel looks bad, where it's very clear that Israel has committed a war crime or a crime against humanity. But there is also racism at the heart of this. Certain lives are treated as if they matter more. And I think there's a whole broader conversation to be had around how the media actually schools audiences to empathize with certain groups, and to care far less about other groups. Empathetic coverage. And this is one of the things I sort of want to empower the public with, because I think people recognize when they're seeing dehumanizing coverage that they don't quite know which mechanisms are at work. But coverage that is schooling the audience to empathize will involve photos, individual names, interviews with family members. We may even see someone's childhood bedroom. We'll get a sense of their dreams, who they were as a person, if they've been killed. And press conferences as well, parents crying over podiums. These are all methods of teaching people to care. Now that entire suite of methods was actually just reserved for Israelis for months and months and months after October 2023. Now that's teaching the public a very specific lesson. And it's saying Israeli grief is exceptional, and it justifies an exceptional extrajudicial response. And that is what we have been seeing.
Personally, I've long since stopped watching BBC coverage of the Gazan genocide, deciding instead to rely on a much more impartial news outlet, namely Al Jazeera News, which gives a far more balanced reporting of the unfolding tragedy.
You'll do nothing. You hear me? You'll do nothing.